Okay, hold on to your hats for this one. Seriously.
What's up?
Katy Perry and Gayle King
Okay.
just went to, the edge of space on a Blue Origin rocket.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, I saw that headline. That's pretty big news. Part of that all-women crew, right?
Exactly. 6 women. But, it got me thinking, they say edge of space, but what is that really? It sounds simple.
But it's surprisingly not straightforward at all. Where Earth's atmosphere ends and space begins. Yeah, that's actually a hot topic.
Seriously, so there isn't just, a sign up there.
Huh? No, not quite. Different groups, even whole countries, they kind of draw the line in different places.
Yeah.
And now with companies like Blue Origin, Virgin Galactic actually selling tickets, well, it matters where that line is.
Right, okay.
Right.
So this Blue Origin flight, it was quick, yeah, 10 minutes.
Yeah, total trip time is about 10, maybe 11 minutes. It's a suborbital flight.
Meaning it goes up, peaks, and comes straight back down. No orbiting the planet.
Exactly. They get a few minutes of weightlessness up there, which is the main event for the passengers, really.
Yeah. And how high did they actually get? Because that seems to be the crux of it.
Well, Blue Origin aims to go just past 100 kilometers. That's about 62 miles out.
Okay, 100 kilometers. That number sounds familiar. Is that the Kármán line?
That's the one, the Kármán line. It's probably the most widely internationally recognized boundary of space.
And where did that come from?
It's named after Theodore von Kármán, a brilliant aerospace engineer, actually a co-founder of NASA's JPL. Back in the day, he tried to figure out, theoretically, where the air gets so thin that wings basically stop working.
So where a plane can't fly anymore, you need a rocket.
Essentially, yeah. Where aerodynamics gives way to astronautics. The Fédération Aéronautique Internationale, the FAI, they adopted that 100-kilometer mark back in the 60s for record keeping and stuff.
Gotcha. So Blue Origin makes sure they cross that line. It's kind of their selling point, maybe, compared to
Virgin Galactic, right? Their flights, like Spaceship Two, they've reached altitudes around 88.5 kilometers, so about 55 miles.
Still incredibly high. 55 miles up.
Oh, absolutely. Way higher than any commercial airliner. And interestingly, that 55-mile mark, or actually closer to 50 miles, 80 kilometers, that's a boundary the U.S. government has historically used.
Wait, really? So the U.S. had a different line?
Kind of. For awarding astronaut wings, particularly for the Air Force and those early NASA test pilots, yeah.
Yeah.
If you flew above 50 miles, you could get your wings.
So under the old U.S. definition, the Virgin Galactic passengers would be astronauts.
Technically, yes. Based on that specific altitude benchmark, it gets confusing, right?
It really does. So who gets to call themselves an astronaut these days? Is Katy Perry an astronaut now?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? It's fuzzy. The FAA even had a program, the Commercial Astronaut Wings Program, for private folks hitting that 50-mile mark on licensed flights.
Oh, yeah.
But they actually stopped issuing those specific wings recently. Now it's more like an official listing or registry of people who've gone out.
Huh. And didn't you say SpaceX gives out wings too?
They do. They have their own internal tradition of awarding wings to their private passengers, like the Inspiration 4 crew. So you've got different organizations, different companies, different traditions.
It feels a bit all over the place. So what does astronaut even mean anymore? Is it just hitting a number on an altimeter?
That's a great philosophical point, actually. Is it altitude? Is it orbiting? One former NASA astronaut I read summed it up pretty well.
What'd they say?
Basically, that if you strap yourself to a rocket and go up, that's definitely something significant, takes guts. But there's a world of difference between a 10-minute suborbital hop and, say, commanding the ISS or flying to the moon.
Right, apples and oranges, even if they're both space routes.
Something like that, yeah. The experience is vastly different.
Okay, let's talk about the experience they do get, that floating feeling. Weightlessness. How does that work if they're not actually orbiting?
Good question. You don't need to be in orbit for brief weightlessness. Think about a roller coaster just as it crests the highest hill.
Yeah, that little stomach jump moment.
Exactly. For a moment, you and the coaster car are both falling at the same rate. On the Blue Origin flight, once the main engine cuts off on the way up, the capsule and everyone inside are coasting upwards, then arsing over and falling back down.
So they're essentially in free fall.
Precisely. Gravity's still pulling on them, hard. But since everything, the capsule, the people, is falling together, they float relative to the inside of the capsule. There's no upward force from the floor pushing on their feet.
Ah, okay, so it's the sensation of no weight because you're falling.
You got it. It lasts for just those few minutes around the peak of the flight, the apogee.
Which is different from the ISS astronauts.
Totally different. They are constantly falling too, but they have enormous sideways velocity, about 17,500 miles per hour. So as they fall towards Earth, the Earth curves away beneath them at the same rate. They're basically falling around the planet.
And that gives them continuous weightlessness.
Right, for months on end. It's sustained free fall because of their orbital speed, not just a quick up and down ballistic path.
Okay, that makes sense. So back to the big question then. Why all the fuss about the exact line? 100 kilometers, 50 miles. Does it really matter beyond bragging rights?
Well, bragging rights are definitely part of it for the companies, let's be honest. But there are scientific and maybe even down the line legal reasons. Von Karman was trying to find a physically meaningful boundary based on flight dynamics.
But you said the atmosphere changes.
Exactly. It swells and shrinks with solar activity and other factors. So pinning down one single altitude where the air is always too thin for aerodynamic lift is tricky. Some studies suggest the functional Karman line might actually fluctuate, maybe between 84 and 100 kilometers.
So the line itself is kind of wobbly?
You could say that, and there are other ways to look at it. Red wire space, for instance, they looked at it from the other direction.
How so?
They analyzed when objects re-entering Earth's atmosphere from orbit start being significantly affected by air drag, when they stop behaving purely like space objects.
And where do they find that happens?
Their data suggested it starts becoming really noticeable around 88 kilometers, so closer to that 55-mile mark.
Huh, interesting. That lines up more with the Virgin Galactic flights in the old US definition.
It does. And think about satellites, too. Some operate in very low Earth orbit, dipping down sometimes into that 80-90 kilometer range. They definitely feel atmospheric effects there.
So maybe the focus shouldn't just be on altitude.
That's what some experts argue. Maybe it's more about what the vehicle is doing. Is it primarily controlled by aerodynamic forces, like a plane? Or by reaction control systems and orbital mechanics, like a spacecraft?
Like, is it flying or is it spacing?
Kind of, yeah. And as technology blurs those lines, think spaceplanes, that distinction might become more useful than just a number.
Okay, so wrapping this back around then. Katy Perry, Gayle King, the crew. Did they go to space?
According to Blue Origin, and using the most common international benchmark, the 100-kilometer Karman line.
Yes, absolutely.
They crossed the line.
Heck, yeah.
Are they astronauts? That one's still debatable. Depends on your definition. Commercial astronauts, space tourists, high-altitude adventurers, the label is fuzzy.
But the experience was real.
Undeniably, they went somewhere very few humans have ever been, saw the curve of the Earth, experienced weightlessness. Label or no label, that's extraordinary.
Yeah, it really puts this whole debate into perspective, doesn't it? It's fascinating how we try to draw these neat lines, but reality, especially out there, is often messier.
It really is. And whether we call them astronauts or tourists, these flights show that space, or at least the edge of it, is becoming more accessible. And that just forces us to keep thinking about these definitions.
So maybe the question for everyone listening is, where do you draw the line? What does astronaut mean to you in this new age? Definitely something to think about next time you're looking up.